The revolution for sound money continues in Wyoming in a big way. And I'm going to tell you why this is so important in this video as we explore. I first saw this story maybe a week or so ago, and I was reminded by several members of the community who made me aware of this story making its way across headlines, across several news agencies. And this is a big deal, folks, especially with regards to what has been happening in the news with Fort Knox, bringing it to attention and the light with Donald Trump and Elon Musk and maybe some governors and senators that are going to visit the vaults at Fort Knox. But what about states? Shouldn't states have their own gold reserves? Well, Wyoming is going to probably do just that if this thing goes through the entire legislative process. I'm going to be referencing a story here that gives us some insight as to what's happening after a Senate bill has been approved to hold $10 million worth of physical gold in the Cowboy State. With an overwhelming majority, the Wyoming State Senate has voted favorably on legislation that would establish a stockpile of gold for Wyoming. Sponsored by sound money champion Senator Bob Idle and backed by Money Metals Exchange and the Sound Money Defense League, Senate File 96 mandates the state treasurer to invest $10 million of state funds in securely stored physical gold and also silver. The bill was widely supported, passing out of the chamber with a 25-6 vote. Senator Idle said, "I'm proud to have sponsored this important measure and to receive this favorable vote by the state Senate. Wyoming doesn't own a single ounce of gold, putting our state finances and citizens at risk. Indeed, this is the most stable store of value." Because we know that the dollar is losing value. States certainly recognize this, so they're taking steps. And what I refer to as the revolution for sound money in states across the nation. And this is the latest attempt, and this is a big one, folks, because it will actually establish a reserve for gold and, yes, even silver. And right now, already, we're seeing facilities being built and operating out of Wyoming. Scottsdale Mint is probably the most famous, but also Summit Metals, who's a sponsor of the channel. They have offices in Wyoming as well. So check out summitmetals.com if you want to hold gold yourself. They have very competitive prices. Elevate your wealth with Summit Metals. And this is what is interesting, I find, as many of these states continue to have legislation go through the chambers and their respected legislative bodies. It's fascinating to see this stuff move and actually be enacted into law, because it means that the Federal Reserve is not as impactful, especially with regards to what's going on with the dollar. They find themselves between a rock and a hard place, and that hard place is just as rocky as the rock itself. In other words, they're butting up against each other to try to make something work where they really don't. They try to manipulate the economy. They manipulate everything else, and when it's all said and done, there's only one solution, and that is sound fiscal policies. And the Federal Reserve is not known for that, mainly because of our Congress. But nonetheless, this is where we stand. And by the way, stay tuned. Later in the video, I want to show you something, and I want to make somewhat of an announcement as well later in the video. But let's get into exactly what this is about. What Bob Idle has says, the senator says, "I've worked for several years to ensure that the state of Wyoming has a stockpile of physical gold to protect ourselves against debt default risk, inflation, volatility, and more. I'm hopeful that representatives in other chambers of the state legislature will agree to pass the Wyoming Gold Act." According to Senator Idle, about the bill's chances in the House there, and I don't know if it's representatives or delegates there, but central banks from all over the world and even neighboring Utah and other states across the U.S. have started to de-dollarize, explained J.P. Cortez, executive director of the Sound Money Defense League. Gold and silver have been a reliable store of value for thousands of years, and more individuals, other countries, and even states themselves are choosing to protect themselves with this time-tested sound money. Additionally, the bill calls for the state treasurer to conduct a study analyzing the role of precious metals in augmenting, stabilizing, and ensuring the economic security and prosperity of the state and the families, residents, and businesses in the state. The study explicitly includes a review of methods for the state to begin accepting gold and silver as payment medium. Since the passage of the Wyoming Legal Tender Act in 2018, the Cowboy State has been a sound money beacon for the rest of the nation, earning a first-place ranking in the 2025 Sound Money Index. The Sound Money Index is something that measures all of these states and where they find friendly or not to sound money principles. Wyoming is one of several states working to establish state gold reserves in 2025. Tennessee and Utah recently passed similar measures in their states, and this week, and I guess that was a couple weeks ago, North Dakota introduced and held a hearing on House Bill 1183, a bill that calls for the state treasurer to invest up to 1% of the total amount of public funds in gold and silver. The sound money movement remained strong in 2025, with pro-sound money legislation introduced in over 20 U.S. states so far. And this channel attempts to keep up with all of it, as much of it as possible. I think this channel is probably the only one that has been consistently reporting on this for several years now, with these state legislative initiatives and passages and major milestones and what's going on with some of these states. So stay tuned and subscribe if you haven't done so already, so you can be apprised of the latest news that makes its way across your device in the world of precious metals. In addition to supporting legislative efforts, Money Metals and Sound Money Defense League offer Sound Money scholarships and Sound Money fellowships. We've talked about that as well too on this channel, but it is pretty amazing. It's really encouraging to see states move in this direction, because it is much needed, because the states are really they are victims of what happens in the federal government as well too, and they have to operate and use dollars, so they need something else that's going to protect themselves against a falling dollar that's been manipulated and is by design to fail. Essentially, there's been at least 2% inflation, folks. Is still inflation, and that's under a normal economic conditions, according to the Federal Reserve. That should not be normal, by the way. It should not be normal that this thing loses value about 2% each year. The dollar, this debt instrument, has lost over 98% of its value since 1913, the establishment of the Federal Reserve Act. Now, that is where we sit. But gold, obviously, is the safest, stable store of value, and this place is going to hold silver as well as gold. My guess is probably they won't hold as much silver, but who knows? And we already know that some of these larger bullion dealers, there's already private ways to secure, and people hold gold and silver off-site. And we know that has been happening for quite a while. But this is for Wyoming, to protect Wyoming. Wyoming is certainly known to be one of those states that is, certainly friendly to the free market, and I applaud that, that's for sure. But this is taking it a step further to applauding and to enacting sound money principles in the state. Long overdue that states do this, and I would love to see other states follow suit, as alluded to in this piece, that other states are heading in that direction. Now, I want to take the time to thank each and every one of you for being here and for watching my videos. Number one, that's most important. I appreciate you guys watching through to the end of my videos, especially those that do that. But I also want to thank my existing subscribers. Those of you who have stayed subscribed to this channel, I want to thank you the most, because you've stuck with me. I know I produce a lot of content. I know many people can't watch all my videos, but I do appreciate those that do watch consistently, even if not every single one. That's the first thing I want to say to you. But I want to thank those of you who decided to subscribe in the last month. This past month has been the most growth that the channel has ever seen. And I am extremely thankful for those of you who have found the channel and have subscribed. And I hope I can keep you. That is really what's important, is that I keep you as a viewer and as a subscriber. We have now reached the 90,000 subscriber threshold. We need 10,000 more. And if we have more months like we had this month in February, well, we just may get there. We'll get there maybe before the end of the year. That's my goal, is to get 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And if we do, well, stay tuned. I'll talk more about that later. But what I want to say is that this is what I promised you. I would unseal this tube. It's not happening now in this video. Stay tuned for tomorrow's morning's video where I do this, because I want to pay special attention to it. And in a further announcement about this, this has never been unsealed since it was sealed by the Mint in Germany in 2012. So stay tuned. In tomorrow's video, I'm going to unseal this of Armenian Noah's Ark coins, ½ ounce. So there that is. So with that being said, I hope you found this video informative, insightful, and educational. Would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.